Hey there, my web crafting wizards. There's not enough greenery in the scene here. Does that make the shop better? Save the planet. I have a really fun episode for you guys today. We're gonna dabble into a little bit of Blender and we're gonna create these awesome abstract 3D animations that you can add to your backgrounds to your website. So we're gonna do a bit of geometry nodes with Blender. We're gonna do a bit of Wix to add some more pizzazz in there. Let's get going. So the first step is to get Blender. We're going to be using Blender 4.1 for this. Don't worry if you're not even comfortable with this. We'll take it step by step and I try to make this as easy as possible. So let's download Blender. After you have Blender opened, you're going to be presented with this page. So just to give you a quick tour over it really quickly, if you hold the middle mouse down, I really recommend to use Blender with a mouse. Otherwise, it's quite a nightmare to do anything with it. So middle mouse to rotate around. If you do the scroll, you'll zoom in and zoom out. And if you hold Shift and the middle mouse, you can also pan around like that. So let's grab this cube and hit the delete key. Okay, so the first step is to add a plane, and the way we can do that is holding Shift A, and then we can go to Mesh and hit Plane. Or, optionally, you can go here to the Add and hit Plane up here. Where is it? Plane, there we go. And we're gonna mainly work with geometry nodes here. And what geometry nodes are, it essentially allows you to procedurally generate 3D models and create these fancy effects that you see with particles and all of that good jazz. So if you head here to the left portion, and you're going to see a little plus icon. If you hold and drag, it's going to drag out a new scene for you like that. Okay? And then here at the top, we can hit this little button here and head over to Geometry Node Editor. We can close this tab up here to make a bit more space. I'll also make this a little bit smaller here so we can see what we're working with. This effect was also inspired by CartesianCaramel. He has a lot of awesome geometry node tutorials here with fur that animates and all of that, so I highly recommend you guys check it out. So with the plane selected, make sure you click it and you have this yellow highlight on. We're gonna go here to the left tab and hit New, and as you can see there, it's gonna create these two nodes for you, a group input and a group output. So what we essentially wanna do is make a hexagon out of this. So if we go here and hit Shift A, we can go down to Mesh, we'll head over to Primitives, and we'll select the cylinder like that. As you can see, that pops it out, so just click anywhere to drop it, and we'll disconnect this. So as you can see now, there's no shape here, and instead we're gonna connect the cylinder shape here to the geometry output. Lovely. And for the vertices here, now we can just lower this to 6. There we go. And this is how it works. Essentially, you grab these nodes, combine them together, and then you can procedurally generate pretty much anything that you can imagine. Okay, so that's all we need for this one. So we'll take this and just move it to the side. Okay, and now we'll just make a new one here. So we'll do Shift A again, Mesh, hit Plane, and there we go. So now with this new one selected, we're gonna hit New here again. So now, again, what we wanna do here is basically drag over this hexagon that we made here on the side. Let's just rename this as well. We'll say hexa. And I can just make sure you have the plane selected. We'll grab the hexa and just drag it in here in our geometry nodes like that. So we'll disconnect this and we're gonna add a new one called instance on points. And the way you can pull up the search icon here is with Shift A. So it's the same command. So we'll say instance on points. And what this allows you to do essentially is create multiple instances of this geometry, in this case our hexagon. And this is great if you want to spawn a bunch of them, scatter them around, create particles and whatnot. So let's zoom out a bit and organize this a little bit because we're going to have a couple more in here. And we're going to take the geometry of this object. So we're going to get this little line here and drag it into the instance of the instance on points. And now the instances is going to go here in the geometry like that. Next up, we're going to go here and also add a mesh line. And this allows us to basically set the count here of how many instances we want of this hexagon object. So we'll take this and plug it into the points here in our instance on points. So just make a bit of space, grab the mesh and drag it in the points. And as you can see, it just generates a bunch of them. And if I take this count and go up and down, as you can see, we can increase and decrease the size of this. Now, we don't want it to go up and down like this. Rather, we want it to go on X and Y axis and spread it kind of like a plane. So what we'll do now is take the Z axis here and set it to 0 like that. And what we'll need to do is set the y-axis to a specific value here. So this is going to be so that these hexagons are perfectly spaced around each other. So the value here that we're going to need to type in is going to be 0.866 like that. And there we go. Now we still don't have the space right. So as you can see, this is still not spread out nice and even. So we'll need to add a couple more nodes here. So the first one we're going to do is a set position. So let's grab this set position and add it here on the mesh line. So now it connects to the set position and to the points. And we essentially want to select every other hexagon and push it to the side here. So we can do that with the index node. So we'll grab an index. Let's place it here. Let's grab these three and just kind of move it to the side. There we go. And here we can also add a math node. That's going to go in the index node like that. And we can switch this over to ping pong like that. So now this index refers to each individual hexagon here. So from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, the ping pong will alternate between them. And now if we just hook up a vector math node to it, there we go, vector math. We'll change this over to multiply. Let's hook the ping pong into the vector. And now this is going to go into the offset right there. Okay, so now if we put this to a value of 2 on the ping pong, and if we just increase the X value here, as you can see, that moves it like that. I can do it on the Y and on the Z as well. So we'll just take the X value here and put it to 1.5 like that. I'll also take this original hexagon and turn it off. So if we head back here, and there we go. So now if I just increase this, as you can see, it's just going to spawn in a bunch of hexagons on the X value, on the Y value in this case. So we'll do it on the X one as well. So let's just put the count up to something like 50. Now let's also organize these a little bit. So I moved all the section here with the mesh line, set position, index, ping pong, and multiply to the side. And we can add a frame to this. So search layout frame. And if I click here, I can just drag these inside the frame like that. And then I can just move all of these together. So there we go. Let's pop this in there and that in there. So now I can just grab this frame and move it around like that. So let's create another frame up here. Hit frame. And here what we'll need to do is pretty much the same. So we can take this mesh line, copy it. Let's paste it up here. We'll drag it into the frame. Let's zoom in a bit. We'll put the count again to something like 50 like we had before. And now here for the Y, we'll reset this to 0. And for the X, let's put this up to 3 here on the offset. We'll essentially need to create another instance on points to span this way. So let's do instance on points. We'll put it here to the top and we'll take the mesh again and we'll hook it into the instance. Now, essentially what we want to do is connect the instance to points here to the instance to points to output this final geometry render for us. But the problem is you're going to get errors if you're trying to hook up instance to points here. So you'll need to add a new node called realize instances, which essentially, I believe, converts it over to a final mesh. So when you plug it into instance to points, it's not going to have that weird behavior. So let's just plug it in there. And now we'll take this geometry and put this instead into the points. And here now we can take the set position and drag this into the points instead here to the top. And there we go. Look at that. We have successfully generated a huge grid of these hexagons. And again, you can mess around with the values here. So if I take the count here, increase it, let's do this one. See, let me just zoom out a little bit. So if I take this one, see, there we go. And then I can do it on this one at the top as well. There we go. We'll do something like 50-50 for each. And that's pretty much all we need. The last thing you can do is if you want to do like some animations and scaling with this, we can hook up another node here to the scale on this final instance on points that goes out to the group output. So let's search up, we'll do a random value node. So we'll just put this here, plug it into the scale, and as you can see, you get that cool effect. You can mess around with this, so you can animate this. If I just move this, as you can see, you have that's pretty cool. So let's switch this over to vector, hook this up to the scale again, and check this out. See, I can move the X I can move the Y and move the Z value as well. So we'll set a limit to these. So we'll do max on all three here to 1. And the minimum here for the first two should also be 1 because I only want to animate the Z scale on this. So now that these are 1, I can just move this up and down like that to get that cool effect. Okay, and the way you can animate this is, let's just set it, let's see, kind of so it matches everything like that to 1. There we go. And then here what we can do is, as you can see, we have a timeline. Let's just do this animation to 120 frames. So we can set this to 120 here. And if I hit I, as you can see, it sets a keyframe there for us. So if I move this over to maybe 60, I can just increase the minimum value here to a value that I'm happy with. So maybe something like that. And then I can go to the end. Oops, sorry, you gotta make sure after you do this. So let's increase this again. So let's say there. I can hit I again, and that's gonna set a keyframe there. So now if I move back and forth, as you can see, it's animating it. So let's just go back to 120 here and move that back down to 1. Now, if you want to get another, let's hit I. There we go. Let's actually extend this to 240. I want to do one more, but I want other points to come out and back in. So the way we can do that is here, I can also set a frame just like one frame before on the seed. So I'll click I. And on 120 here, I'll just move this to a random number. All right, this is just going to generate, again, a random number with the hexagons. So here I'll just move it to a random number like that and hit I again. And this is going to take other hexagons to pop up now. So now let's do, so we'll need to add 60 to this. So we'll go to 180 and let's move these out again. So let's also set a keyframe here. So I'll say I and 180. Let's move this up, and now you're gonna have different parts, because look, if I move this around, see different parts of them are gonna come out. So we'll do I, and then go to 240 again, and set this back to 1, and hit I again. So now that's gonna perfectly loop for us. So let's have a look, and there we go. And that's it. That's all we need to do here. So now we can just head back to modeling. This is gonna kind of close up all those tabs for us. And we'll need to add a nice, like color to this. So to view your material, you can head over here to the final rendered view. There we go. Or you can actually just hit this material tab as well, but we'll go to the rendered view here. As you can see, we also have a little light here. So if I hit G, we can move this around. Let's just kind of grab it, zoom out, and move it kind of here to the middle. If I click G and hold the middle mouse, as you can see, I can move it along the axis as well. So I can lock it to that Z and just move it slightly up there. And then in the step here, I can also increase the luminosity of this. So let's just do something like 5,000, 15,000 like that. So now that we have our grid and animation complete, we can open up the panel here again on the side and go into Shade Editor this time. So if we select the hex here and hit the plus icon here, I think I already have 2 materials set. Let me just reset these. So I'm just gonna hit X there, hit new, and it's gonna give you this panel here. And you can pick any color you want, and again, to preview it, either be on the Material tab here or the Render tab. If this still doesn't work for some reason for you, head back over to the plane here, and we'll go back to the geometry node editor, and we can add another node here, set material. Sometimes it doesn't work. The last time I did this, it just worked, but for now it doesn't. So I'll just plug that in like that. And let's see now if we can just select that new material that we created here, okay? So I'll select that new material. You can give it any name you want. I'll just pick this one, see the blue one. And let's head back to the hex, go over to the shader editor. So now if I change the color here, as you can see, that updates live. I'll pull up here another node, the object info, and we can pass in a color ramp here to essentially kind of generate 2 different types of colors. So let's take this and plug in the random to the color ramp. There we go. And then we'll take the color and plug it into the base color here. So as you can see, that generates that randomness pattern for us. Here you can pick any color you want. So let's go here. I'll brighten this up. We'll kind of do like darker colors here because we'll add white text on the website. So maybe like a darker shade like that. And then for the second color here, we're going to do like a darker blue. So let's go with something like that. Now you can also just do metallic value here. So let's just increase this. Kind of like this, it gives quite a nice contrast to it as well. So I'll just up this to like 0.45. And the roughness, let's bring it to around 0.5. Now one more thing we can do to make this a tad bit nicer, as you can see, these have quite harsh edges, so we can add some bevel to it. So with the hex selected here, I can go over here to the modifier tab, hit add new modifier, and we'll search for the bevel. There we go, so it adds that bevel. I'll increase the segments a bit here to something like 6 or so. There we go. And the distance here, I can also lower this to something smaller like that. Okay, so 0.06 or so. And now if I select the hex, and let's just bring this back here, you can hit the period or the delete key, and I can grab this and hit shade smooth, which is gonna smoothen those edges out a little bit. And now I'm gonna open up the side panel here, and we'll go over to view, and I can hit this camera to view button. That means that I can just position this any way I want, and the camera is gonna stick to it. Okay, so if I hit 0 on my numpad, see, I can just move this around and find a position that I really like. And then you can just hit space to kind of preview the animation and just like, again, kind of find the position that you like. So there we go. And then here for the rendering, I'm gonna switch this over to cycles. Now I'm not gonna do this now because my OBS is gonna crash, but make sure you have that over to cycles, and then you can use GPU compute. If you have a GPU in your computer, it's gonna give the rendering, it's gonna make it much, much faster. Now let's go to the output and render this out. So we'll use a resolution of 1920 by 1080. We'll keep this at maximum quality. And here for the frame rate, I mean, it's up to you. We can either do 30 frames per second, 60. 30 is gonna be plenty for this one. Let's select an output here. I'll just go here to downloads and call this cube animation. Let's hit save. And here for the file format here, we're gonna pick FFmpeg video, and for the encoding here, we're gonna select MPEG4. All right, so that's gonna be MP4. And here for the quality, let's do a high quality. So now that we have all of this set up, we can just head over here to the top and hit render animation. Okay, and then we can head to Wix Studio. I actually ended up changing the resolution here to 1920 by 1920 because our website is going to be a tad bit more vertical. So I just want to capture a tad bit more of this in. Now we're ready to import this in Wix Studio and add a bit more animation to kind of bring this effect to life. So let's close this up and head over to Wix Studio here. As you can see, I have a blank page set up. We are going to go here to the plus icon. Actually, we can just hover over here and add a new section in like that. Let's expand this all the way down. There we go. And we need to add a video box to this. So let's head over to the side panel here and let's look for the video. So here under media, we can go over to video box and let's just drag in this jellyfish one like that. Okay, we'll expand it and expand it back down. We'll hit change video and upload our file. Once this is imported, it might take a second or two to load up, but let's just hit update for now like that. Okay. We'll expand this like that so it fills up the whole screen. Again, give it a second or two until this loads up, but let's start adding some text here on top. One more thing we can do on the video is go here to the behaviors. We essentially want this to play instantly and just loop forever. So change the how does it start to play here from click to automatically, and pausing, we'll just disable that so it just constantly plays, and we'll keep it on loop. And again, if nothing shows up here, it's because Wix might need a second or two to generate these thumbnails for you. But once it does, you can click here on the side panel and it'll pop up here on the screen for you as well. So let's take this text and change it up a little bit. We'll align it here to the center and we'll switch this over to Wix Metaphor font. We'll do bold And let's change this to ship faster and at scale. Okay, we'll expand this to a 1-line text. Let's say we're building out a database website, so I'll add another text tool here like that, the database you love on serverless platform. And let's switch this over to Wix Metaphor as well, but I'll change the font to something a tad bit smaller, like a medium. So let's see, there we go, medium, and we'll make this much, much smaller, like 24. And I actually want this to be on like 2 lines like that. So let's bring that up, center it as well, and then we can center the text there like that. Let's also add a button in here. So I'll just go over here to this RSVP because it's already rounded and everything. So it looks quite nice. So we'll center this as well until it essentially clicks there, see, with the purple icon. So we'll drag it up to the top. We'll leave it there. Maybe we'll expand this a bit like that. And we'll change the text as well on the side here. If you open up the text tool, we'll do the font to 18. And we'll say change text. And let's say join today. And there we go. As you can see, the thumbnails got generated as well. So we'll take these and just change the color over to white like that. There we go. We'll take this as well and change the color to something a tad bit more fun. Let's kind of preview a couple here. Maybe we'll do a green. Now check this out. Here's a cool little trick to make the text pop up a little bit more. They actually have some cool pattern overlayouts here. So if I hit apply pattern, see, I'll go with the second one here that's going to give it a bit of grainy look to it, which looks really nice. And it kind of hides also if like your video is a bit lower quality, if you exported this at like, 720p, that grain actually just makes it look a tad bit better. Now here's the best part. You can add a nice 3D animation to this in just a couple of clicks. Now here's the best part. When you have the video selected, we can go here to the thunder icon and add a mouse effect to this. So you can add a resize, and this is going to essentially make a move left to right like that, see, based on where your mouse is. But the size here, as you can see, goes smaller like that, which is not what we want to do. So rather than going from shrink, let's go over to expand. And I'll pick a lower value here, like 150. So as you can see now, when I hover, see, it kind of just like zooms in to different parts of the screen. So that's pretty cool. And then you can adjust the distance here as well if you want to get the desired effect that you want. But that's essentially it. So now when we hit play, check this out. You not only get the animation playing, but you also get the super cool mouse follow. So there we go. That's going to be it for me. Hope you enjoyed this episode. Let me know if you want to see more tutorials with Blender. There's so much you can do with geometry nodes. It's, the sky is the limit. So thank you so much for watching. Drop a sub, drop a like on this channel, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.